everyone. So today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in January. And January was a very productive reading month for me. I read 24 books. That is probably the most that I have ever read in a single month. Right, Olivia? Here she is. You're going to be on my lap? Yeah. So just to kind of go over my stats, the majority of the books that I read were emotional, reflective, and challenging. There was an even split between slow, fast, and medium paced reads. I mostly read shorter books. And this is very odd. So for fiction, I read 74%, or just about 3/4 of fiction, to 26, or almost 1/4 of nonfiction, which generally is not the case. So I am very shocked to see that. So I read a lot of children's books, which I find them comforting, children's and middle grades, literary, young adult, contemporary, history, historical, and graphic novel books. And the majority of the books I rated pretty highly, over 4 stars, which just does not really happen. So the first 8 or 6 books I have gone over in my reading journal, my yellow reading journal notebook. So I'm just going to give the title, a quick blurb, and what my star rating was, and then I'll go into the other books that I read for the month of January. So the first book is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and it is a fiction contemporary. I would say that it is a thriller, and it's all about Enchanted Jones and sort of her story of trying to become a singer, though she is mentored by someone who ends up doing quite a lot of harm to her. There are a lot of content warnings for this book, and what I loved about this book so much is that Tiffany D. Jackson is just so good at writing in such a way that you just keep wanting to see what happens next. So I just kept turning the pages and just wanted to know everything. She does such a good job, so I gave that one 4.25 stars. The next book I read was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, and this was a 5-star read. I have been reading a lot of James Baldwin lately, and I just absolutely love this. So this was sort of a collection of 2 essays. The first is on race in America, and then the second one is focused on race and religion. I don't know what to say. It's James Baldwin. He's just so incredibly brilliant, and I listened to the audiobook, which I recommend for this one for sure, so 5 stars. Then I read Letter to My Daughter by Maya Angelou, and I gave this one 5 stars as well. What I find so great about Maya Angelou's works is, 1, she is brilliant, and 2, if you listen to her audiobooks, she has just the most soothing, amazing voice to listen to that is just, it almost puts you in a trance. There were just so many quotables. So if you are listening to the audiobook, definitely bookmark those quotes and try to write them down for you to remember in the future. They're just so great. So yeah, 5 stars, easy. Okay, then I read The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde, which is a classic. So this was just basically a short story. So this was an American family, and they moved into a British household. And so there was just a lot of cultural dialogue, which was very satirical and just really great to listen to. The ghost is a character in and of himself, and the family was just not having any of this paranormal activity whatsoever. I love this book. However, I did give it a 3.75 just because, it was a short story. I wish that it could have just gone into so much more than it did, but nonetheless, it was just great. So 3.75. Then I read Islands of Decolonial Love, Stories and Songs. So this was a poetry/short story collection. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the methods of storytelling. I love how there was Anishinaabe that was inserted into the book. And so how I went about this, I listened to the audiobook and thought that was just the best way to listen to this. So I gave it 4.25 stars. Really, really highly recommend it. So then I read Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo by Zora Neale Hurston. So this was an interview that was done by Zora Neale Hurston and Cudjo Lewis, or Kazula. And this interview was done a while ago, so 19 30s. And so you hear the history and the story of Kazula. So Kazula was one of the very last of those who were enslaved and brought from Africa to America. She talked about the details of his life, his childhood, all of the horrors of being captured and brought over to America. And I just feel very grateful that I was able to read this book. 5 stars, I definitely recommend this, and I recommend listening to the audiobook. There's a very distinct way in which Cujah Lewis, in which he speaks. And so Zora Neale Hurston, so she decides to try and keep that sort of dialect in the way that she writes. And I really loved how the narration was done. So yeah, 5 stars, it was great. Then I read my NetGalley book, which was Cold Brew Corpse. So thank you to NetGalley for providing a advanced reader copy in exchange for a review. This is part of a series by Tara Lush, which is a coffee lover's mystery, and this is the second of that series. And so in this book, there is a yoga instructor who runs a studio next to the main character's coffee shop. And the way that this yoga instructor, the way that she died, she was killed after being hit by an SUV. Things that I really loved about this book, I love that it was set in Florida. It is winter here in Canada, so it was really nice to sort of go to a sunnier, nicer destination for the book. I love cozy mysteries, I love having bookstores, and I just love them, while also trying to investigate a murder. I do wish that this was a little bit cozier, a little bit of a cozier sort of mystery. I wish that there was more coffee and crumpets and all of the nice things that make up a cozy mystery. But at the same time, I think that, it was a lot of fun to try and figure out who the killer was. It wasn't totally obvious, at least for me it wasn't. And yeah, I would definitely like to read more of this series in the future. Actually, on Bookstagram, I saw on someone's story that they were reading this book, and it just made me happy. So I do recommend this if you are into cozy mysteries and you want to find a new one. Okay, then I read 77 Fragments of a Familiar Ruin, and this is by Thomas King. It was 77 poems that were just fragmented, but they come together as you read them. And there's even a point in the book where he tells you to stop what you're doing. I think this is poem 55 or something like that. And to go to the very beginning of the poetry book and to read it from there. In the book, there is quite a lot of mention of colonization. And I thought that it was very insightful, very reflective, and very challenging at times as well. So 4.75 stars, I loved it and definitely recommend it. Next, I had Coyote Tales, again by Thomas King. You'll notice that I read a few Thomas King books this month, okay? And this was just really cute, but also really deep as well. So in this collection of children's stories, there are 2 stories. One is Coyote Sings to the Moon, and the other is Coyote's New Suit. So in Coyote Sings to the Moon, there's the coyote, and he notices that at night all of the animals, they sing up into the moon. But then Coyote sings with the rest of the animals and the moon disappears. And so they have to try and figure out exactly where the moon went and how to get the moon back. I love this one. And then there's Coyote's New Suit, which again, I just loved. Basically, the coyote is told by Raven that his suit is not as great as it could be. And so Raven kind of inspires Coyote to try and find new coats to wear. So then he starts stealing all of the coats that are from other animals. And then the Raven tells the animals to borrow clothes from the humans. And of course, the ultimate theme is not taking more than what you need. I loved it, 4.25 stars, so cute. Wish the collection was bigger, but I loved the 2 stories that were in it. Then I read 2 graphic novels right afterwards. The first was Borders, again by Thomas King. So one of these is a story by a boy, and so he goes to cross the American-Canadian border. And so at that sort of intersection, they get questioned by Border Patrol. And his mom gets questioned and gets asked, are you Canadian citizenship or do you have American citizenship? And so she says that she is Blackfoot. But the whole entire premise of the book is to look at nationality and to go over themes like justice and belonging. So I loved all of the illustrations. I really enjoyed the story, and I gave this one 4.25 stars. Then I read Anne of Green Gables, a graphic novel, which I enjoyed. It was by Maria Marston. For the most part, I really enjoyed the art style, and it's the story of Anne of Green Gables. So, of course, I just love that. And it was really nice for me to sort of read Anne of Green Gables in a very short amount of time by reading a graphic novel, just to sort of remind myself of the story, because I have a few friends that were reading this book. However, I don't feel that this book maintained like all of the magic of Anne of Green Gables. So I gave this one a 3.75 stars. I recommend reading this, but only after reading the classic. I feel that would be probably best. And you know, I think I'm going to end this wrap up here for today, and I will do part 2 tomorrow. There were just quite a lot of books, so I think that is probably best. So I'm going to end it here and then finish it tomorrow, where I will go over the rest of the books that I read in January. 24 books. I've never done a wrap up like this before. So that's everything for today. Please look out for that wrap-up video. And if you want to take a look at how I do my book reviews, please feel free to look at my reading journal. My yellow reading journal is where I do all of my book reviews, and I will leave that link down below and within the cards. That's everything for today. Bye.